The Sandy and Toddcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions.
Broadcasting from two very different yet magical places not found on any map. Get ready to discuss the strange, weird, ghostly, crazy, spooky, and odd things that take place around us each and every day. All while having a little bit of fun. This is the Sandy and Toddcast.
Well, I don't even know how to start this exactly. She's Sandy.
He's Todd.
And welcome to another edition of the Sandy and Toddcast. This is season 5. I have no idea what episode this will be at this point.
But we're here.
Yeah. We're actually at Sister Bay at Coach Light Inn. And that's where we kind of stayed on our little jaunt.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We're checking out this morning. We're rounding out our visit. And we're going to head to Door County Distillery.
Door County Distillery and Door Peninsula Winery.
Which is exciting because I was looking at Haunted State last night, going through the episodes. I'm actually going to watch one of them because now I want to go back, Todd, because like we said last time, I haven't watched it in 2.5 years, so little details I completely do not remember.
Yeah, and I don't remember it because we filmed it like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But, ironically or weirdly enough, we started naming these podcasts in our little trip as Return to Haunted State 2022. So our podcast continues with a great thing that I think took place yesterday.
Oh, it was amazing.
Sandy and I went to the Kena Island Lighthouse, which, a quick backstory on lighthouses. For some reason, I've always really loved them. Mm-hmm. The first lighthouse that I was ever drawn to is actually when I lived in Michigan. There was one on Lake Michigan called Little Sable Lighthouse. And the keeper's quarters had been demolished years and years and years ago. But the tower still stands literally right on the beach, right next to the water. And it is the same type of lighthouse as Kena Island. The only difference is they use the same brick, they use the same everything. It was designed the same way. Kena Island now has metal plates that surround it to protect the brick that was on the tower because the weather just does not do well with that kind of brick, and so they always wrap some of those towers in metal. So I was attracted to that lighthouse in Michigan, and then this one became kind of my go-to lighthouse in Wisconsin. And so I've been there several times. I was there before Haunted State. I went at Haunted State. I've gone another time again before that. So I've been there several times. It's like my 4th or 5th trip.
But let's talk about lighthouses for just a sec, because I'm the same way. I grew up just being totally in love with lighthouses, and I'm forever grateful that there are so many being preserved, because it's nice to know that they have realized just how important and historic these lighthouses are. And you find lighthouses everywhere in the world, which is just amazing to me. And I've always been fascinated with them myself. So whenever Dave and I go on vacation, if there's a lighthouse to be seen, that's where we go. That's one of the places we go. And I've told everybody about my experience at the St. Augustine Lighthouse in St. Augustine, Florida several years ago, and the amazing stuff that happened. And so we just naturally wanted to visit, especially together. We wanted to visit one together. And this one was very special because it was part of Haunted State. And like I was saying earlier, I had forgotten. I kind of knew some of the places, but last night I went through and I actually counted how many stops we're making out of the 8 episodes of season 1. 5. Yeah. Which is a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. And the thing too, like you mentioned, preserving these lighthouses, one of the things about going to Kena Island was we couldn't get in because they're actually redoing the inside. They're taking it back to the 1920s, which is great. The inside was in a little rough shape the last few times I've gone. And so when I heard that they were redoing it, I was actually pretty happy with that situation because it needed to happen.
Right.
So we were not able to go inside. So, of course, we're thinking, well, maybe nothing will happen. Maybe we'll get nothing.
I never go into stuff with expectations because then you're disappointed.
Right.
So I try not to go in with any expectations whatsoever. Deep down, you're excited. because, we've already
possibility,
had... Sure.
Right.
And we've already had one amazing experience the
Right.
day before
Right.
at the old Viking temple / church.
Yep.
And so, no expectations, but yet kind of excited and really looking forward to it. But we realized once we got there that since we can't get in, we sort of have to play it by ear and figure it out and see what we can do, because there are other people there too.
Yes. And there were a lot of people, and that was also nice to see. It was nice to see so many people going out and seeing this thing. As with the Viking temple and church, it was nice to see so many people had visited it that day. It was not just us walking and whatever. So people are seeing it. People are getting to experience it. I was, what we decided to do is on this island, we went out to the beach first because it's incredible out there. Mm-hmm. The experience just out on the beach is very... surreal, grounding, that kind of thing. But they had these little benches set up throughout the island. There's maybe 5 or 6 of them, something like that. And they're in donation of somebody. So it's one of those things where there's a bench and there's a plaque on it. And it says, in honor of Cassandra Uvenstein of, New York.
Right.
And from her loving husband, Dave, who is now free to do whatever he wants in life.
Although I did not hear one poor Dave all weekend. So that's actually good.
But there are stories. And
yes.
One involves a lumber yard and a 2x4. But so we decided, let's just try one of these benches.
Yeah. Well,
and again, like you said, not expecting anything.
No, and it's funny because I broke off from you guys. Yep. Everybody kind of went their own way, and I broke off from you guys. And they have, back in the woods a little bit, they have like these little troughs where kerosene contain, like large, what's the word I want, Todd? Like, not containers, but not barrels, but tanks.
Tanks, yeah.
So they had those left. The kerosene was long gone, but they had the tanks left. And I was reading about it, and I brought out my meter, and I'm getting nothing. Yeah. And so I decided to walk back towards you guys down by the beach, and I just happened upon all of these little benches. And me, with my research and everything, I'm thinking, well, if nothing more, I'm going to look up these names. So I was taking pictures of the names, and I said, okay, well, if nothing more, I'm going to at least do that. So I caught up with you guys. We did some pictures down by the beach. It was fun. We were having a good time. And then we walked back, and Dave sort of went off on his own. Everybody kind of went off on their own, except you and I. And we said, well, this might be a good time to give it a shot. Do you want to try a bench? And so... And
I'll be honest, the first thing I thought was, it's just a bench, right?
It's a bench.
Right.
Who knows?
But we literally put the equipment on it, and before we could just set it down, they started going off.
33.4 on the EMF of my meter.
And they're not metal benches. No. They were wood benches that had been out there for a while. They weren't brand new. So why would wood be holding energy like that?
And far away from any electrical things. It just was odd. So I sat down, and boy, did we have great teamwork on that one. I sat down, we put the K2 meter, you had your K2 meter, and I had my meter. We sort of put them side by side, and we confirmed that there was no interfering with each other because, there was no hits on anything because they were close by each other. We were good to go. I took out my digital recorder, put that down next to it, and did we have quite the session?
I pulled out my phone, so I started videoing it. So we have several different pieces of evidence to go through. We had the experience of asking questions of the people who were on the benches. It seemed like everybody who had these benches placed there in honor of them came through.
Yeah, and which was so cool because we were trying to find the right words, but I think validation was a good word to use. We received validation in several ways because we weren't just getting little tiny blips on the K2 meter. It was literally going all the way over to the red, like all the way over to the red. And a lot of times as it was doing that, my meter would go off.
Or you'd say, could you also do this? And then it would do that.
And then it would do that. Or responding intelligently to the questions that we asked. Now, these are people we don't know. We had no idea. We only knew names. So at one point it was really cool because I said, well, if you have a message that you'd like to send to your loved ones, could you please give us their names? We have the ability to look for them. Could you please give us their names or any message that you have? You can just speak into this little box down here, because you have to be that's a good point that we talk about a lot, is when you're investigating, you have to kind of dumb it down, because you don't know what year or years or time stamps that you're actually dealing with.
Right.
So to say, can you talk into this digital recorder to somebody from the 40s, they're not going to know at all what you're talking about. So you dumb it down.
And we don't even know. Are they still existing in that time frame at that moment right there? We don't know. You know, are they visiting us in our time frame?
Right.
Who knows?
So I said you could just talk as loudly as possible into this little box that I have here, and we'll be able to forward a message. And it was so cool, because all of a sudden, we laughed about it yesterday, all of a sudden the K2 meter just started all the way to the red, but going back down, and then almost like somebody was speaking, like if you're in radio or know of a
VU meter, which is the levels of audio. If you ever see that, like even on, on your phones and stuff like that, a lot of times when you play audio, it'll show you the little VU meter of how high the levels are. That's what was going on with the K2.
Like someone speaking.
Right, exactly. So, we kind of wrapped it up. And then these were short sessions. They were like 4 or 5 minutes. We didn't prolong it. We weren't asking them to say our names. We weren't asking them to turn on lights. We didn't even really tell them, could you please make this light up? We did that a couple of times. But more often, we were just asking questions about it.
Explaining what their actions would do for us.
Correct. But not saying, hey, could you, jump through a hoop for
And
us?
we learned a lot about that. I think we've evolved a lot, and we talk about kindred spirits a lot, but we've learned a lot from their show as to not to be pushy or demanding, to actually go in with a lot of honor and respect.
Yeah.
And I will say this, it really worked. And because we're in 2 different states, we don't get to investigate often. So the fact that it really worked for us so well is a testament to that show, but it's a testament to us, because obviously our chemistry and the way we work together was absolutely phenomenal. And I'm very proud of that.
And again, it happened immediately. And a lot of times when you investigate, you kind of go in, and it takes a while for things to kind of ramp up and get going. And that was not the case. So we wrapped it up after 4 or 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. What should we do? Well, there's another bench over there. Should we check it out? Well, why not? Well, guess what? Same damn thing.
Yeah, which was so cool. And the interesting thing was, we didn't do the 3rd bench, because then we sort of got interested in the old oil building. There's a little round octagon shaped oil building. We went in there, and I did get a hit of about 133, which is very odd. And so that had to be explained away somehow. We don't know enough about the setup, electricity setup, or anything there at that. But it was one major spike. But I just don't think, otherwise we didn't get anything in there.
But we really didn't stick around. There were other people around. We thought, we'll move on.
Yeah, so we kind of moved on to an old shed.
And right now, inside the shed are a lot of the old tools and stuff that were still laying around from the property, and old boxes. Back in the day, they would have crates of canned goods and stuff like that.
A lot of tools.
Tools and old crates and stuff like that. And there was nothing in there.
I thought for sure with stuff like that, there would be something. There was nothing. And this is an important point to make too, that as I'm walking the island, I'm picking up energy. So I know that there's a lot of residual energy, which is to be expected. Not a heavy residual energy, as far as it wasn't any negative or darkness or anything. It is a very positive residual energy, which if we had been in the house may have been a different story.
Correct.
So, but I'm not picking up on anything like that. And we used the shed sort of as we were looking for a good term, as our control in the situation, because
we had so much activity, we had to think about it. Is this just going on all over the thing? Are we really getting hits, or is there something going on? It was dead.
No pun intended.
There was nothing
or pun
in the
intended.
shed at all. I walked around to all the equipment, put my K2 up to it, walked up to any electrical sources that would be there. There was nothing.
I literally put my millimeter down on tools, down on everything. What was interesting, too, is outside the back of the shed, there had been a shipwreck in the 1920s, I believe, 1928, and they still had some of the pieces of the ship against this big stone wall in the back. And so I did put it down. There was a little bit, that was residual energy, I'm sure. There was a little bit of activity there, but absolutely nothing in that shed. And I was so glad that that happened because it helped us to kind of determine what was going on and where and how.
It made us realize, too, that our equipment wasn't faulty. It wasn't, just some sort of weird thing going on.
And to know that there was no feelings from me and the fact that there was nothing scientific going on, it was perfect. So then, perhaps the most interesting part of our visit.
Yeah, there's I believe it was made out of limestone because it's all limestone there, but a limestone fence kind of surrounds the property and kind of comes around to that shed area. And that was where the wreckage was leaning up against the fence. And to be honest, I didn't investigate the fence so much or the wreckage because there was so much sunshine there. It was hard to see our equipment really well.
Yeah.
So we went on the backside where there was a little bit of shade. And I just put my K2 there and you put your millimeter there and we put the recorder out or whatever. And something that happened in Haunted State, the series, on our episode at the island, kind of stood out to me. And I never really thought about it till our trip. And what happened was, and I don't want to give too much away because, as I always say, Michael Brown will sue me. But one of the members of our crew actually had a family member come through to them.
Yeah.
Now, that family member did not have anything to do with the island other than the island and the lighthouse were important to their family, just as the island and lighthouse have been important to me. And so I thought, well, maybe we should just ask if there's anybody in our families that wanted to come through.
And it's important, I think, to mention, too, that we also discussed this after the fact yesterday, that I think that I truly believe that free spirits, and I do believe there are spirits who are bound to certain areas for certain reasons, but I do believe that there are free spirits, meaning they can travel. They're not bound to anything. If you think about them and you open yourself up to them, they're there for you. They're not with you constantly, and that may be a case here and there, but I don't believe that most of them are there with you constantly. I believe that they're there when you need them, when you invite them, when you're open to them, when you're at peace, when you're in a good place. That's when they'll come through. When you bring them to your mind. Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
And so I guess I kind of did that because as we were standing there, I asked if my mom was with us. Mm-hmm. And again, like before, nothing was really going on in the meters. Yep. And all of a sudden when I said that, boom.
It just immediately. And intelligently.
Yes, because I was asking questions about Sandy.
We'll share videos with you guys. You'll see what he's talking about.
You'll see all these. We'll put all these up for you because it was really just, and we wanted to document this trip in some way, and I think we documented it the best way we could, which is not flashy. It's very much like an investigation where there's some video and audio and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really believe I communicated with my mom yesterday.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because when I say intelligence, I mean not responding to something that would be a no, responding to something that would be a yes.
Yep. And everybody says, well, she's always with you. She's always visiting. And the one thing I said yesterday is, maybe you said it. Do you visit him often? Or I said it or something. No response.
Yeah.
And I said, because you don't need to, right? Because you know I'm okay. Mm-hmm. Huge response.
Exactly. And I think you had, a couple of years ago, you had a situation where she did visit you. Where were you, a cemetery?
I was at a shrine. Catholic shrine, correct.
Yeah. And you had an experience, and you were in a place where you may have needed her.
Yep.
And she came to you.
Yep.
And I think that's important for people to understand is that they may be with you in your heart always, but they may not visit you all the time. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing because you know that when you need them, they're there.
I'm laughing because I said to my mom, what do you think of this one here? And of course, I'm talking about Sandy. And I said something to the effect of, you'd call her a Looney Tune, wouldn't you? And you could see her laughing on the K2 meter.
You could. It was amazing. And we're not just talking little blips, which in and of themselves are responses.
And sometimes a little blip was a response, one or two lights on the K2, but a lot of times it was into that yellow and into that. And
I will be honest with you, I have never seen it on that level. I have never seen that much red on a K2 meter consistently answering intelligent questions or questions intelligently ever.
So that pretty much, and again, I didn't keep her around. I wasn't,
Right.
I didn't want to bother her. It was a nice experience. And
yes. I think we finished it really well.
Yeah.
And closed it really well.
Yep.
And, and I told her, I said, one of my big regrets is I never got to meet her because you talk about her a lot, just like you talk about your dad. You talk about them a lot and in a great way, in a very at peace way.
I did notice when I brought up the spots on the faucet, she didn't respond. Because what I did was I asked Mom to haunt the hell out of Sandy. I said, remember when people would leave spots on the faucet and you'd lose your shit? No response. So maybe I touched a little nerve there with Mom.
Oh, that's so funny. But those are the personal experiences that I was very happy that we could back up with equipment. We could back it up with video so that we had a really good, because a lot of times when you're in the moment, even in a full-scale investigation, when you're in the moment, you're in that moment. Yep. You're not processing information. Me, as a medium, as a psych, whatever, however you want to classify it, when I'm in the middle of stuff, I'm not thinking. Like, I'm not processing. Right. It's just what comes to me. Yep. And so I don't really think about and I'm exhausted at the end. So by the time that I get a chance to process it, it's like the next day. Yep. And so it's great to be able to have all of this stuff that we did come together to be able to process it. And we talked about it a little, but we didn't really talk about it much yesterday, only because we're still processing everything. Right.
And I think with all the investigations we've done so far, we've got one we're hopefully going to be able to pull out a little equipment at today, maybe.
Yeah, we're hoping so. Our final stop on the Haunted State Tour 2022.
That's right.
Return to Haunted State.
Yeah. But I think, we still have to listen to the audio on it. Right. And just kind of, the one thing I will say, that island is very grounding for me. It's a wonderful place for me to go to.
And I was very happy to, I couldn't really take my shoes off, but I was very happy to be able to walk in the grass, to walk down on the rocks, to
where the little dead fish were that she was freaking out about.
Well, I wasn't really freaking out. I just didn't realize there'd be little dead fish laying all over the place. So that was a little creepy at first. And then as we're trying to record the video,
God, you'll hear it.
This family comes running back through the little there's like a little pathway to the beach, and they come running through, and the child's like, "You threw a fish at my face." And it was just one of the funniest little conversations that, we kind of chuckled. We're in the middle of everything. But one other thing we can mention before we wrap up is so a lot of times what'll happen to me is when I know I'm going to go to a place, I will get one level of impression on it. So I told Todd last week, I said, Todd, there's going to be two energies there, male energies there, and there's going to be a female energy. And that's really all I knew. I didn't know much about them. And then, was it the day before yesterday, I think, in the car on the way up?
On the way up, I think.
I just got this impression, and things will just come to me. I don't know how I know them. They just come to me in my head. And it took a while for me to really learn that I'm not making them up, that they're real. It's not my imagination, because I grew up thinking things were my imagination my whole life. So I said to him, okay, there's going to be this man, and I gave names, and this woman, and I gave a name. And the reason I'm not doing it, saying it right now, is because I really want to do some research on it and see what we can come up with. But when we were in the gift shop after the fact, I was looking through a pamphlet that had some of the keepers, and sure enough, one of the keepers from the 1940s was the first name.
It's the first name
of one of the men. And so that was kind of like a huge aha moment for me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a keeper. It could have been, families live there. So it could have been a keeper's child or cousin or somebody who spent a lot of time there.
Yep.
I don't know that they're necessarily bound to that land, but they're pretty prominent spirits there.
I always say about lighthouses, and one of the reasons why I think a lot of them just have so much energy is because, again, it's one of those jobs, it's one of those tasks. It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
You have a very daunting task of making sure ships don't wreck and kill people. It's a very hard life.
Very isolating.
Very isolated. And so families, would be out there months on end. In the winter, you might be able to get off the island. Maybe in the summer, you couldn't get off without a boat or whatever. I mean, that's why I think people are kind of held there too.
And I think too, the fact that we couldn't get inside, I think if we had gone inside, those energies would have really hit me. Like I couldn't really feel them when we were there, but I think if we had been able, I think a lot of it hinged on, so, maybe someday in the future when we're out here, we actually do go back and we actually do get to go in there. I was just grateful that they're doing all they can to preserve it. But I really feel like they're there. So we'll see. That's a to be continued kind of story, because I really feel like we nailed down one name, but we have two more. So we'll have to see what we can come up with. And it doesn't even have to be somebody who was a keeper or the keeper's family. It could have been a volunteer on the land.
Could have been somebody who died in a wreck outside.
Yes.
That area, whatever.
Yep. So very interesting. It was very emotional for me. I kind of, as we bounced back to the shore, I was a little bit emotional just because we had some very personal experiences.
Yeah.
I was really grateful that we got to share them together. Because we don't get to share things like that often. So when we do get together, we have that chance. It's really nice. And we had literally 4 amazing sessions together this weekend, which was really great.
And now we'll see what happens today.
Yeah. One last stop. And then Dave and I head back to Chicago after the craziness that ensued trying to get out here on Wednesday night.
Hopefully it's not that way getting back for you.
No, this one is a little bit less stressful. So we'll be getting back. We'll see what happens. We're actually recording this for this episode on Sunday when our first trip episode comes out.
Correct.
And so we'll see. We'll give everybody some follow-ups and see what happens. But make sure that you watch for our videos.
Yeah.
And some of our pictures. Yeah. And it should be really exciting. But that was fantastic. And I was so happy that we got to do that. And nothing but laughs on this vacation. We had such a good time. And
probably too many.
Too many
laughs.
Too many laughs and, just goofiness.
Too much cheese.
There was a lot of cheese. Okay, so I tried chocolate cheese fudge.
Yeah.
Which was absolutely delicious. Never thought I'd put chocolate and cheese together in a fudge, but absolutely delicious. So that was good. And we got all fat and sassy and so we had a great time. So I'm just want to say I'm very grateful for you. I love you very much.
Love you too. We got one more episode to do. So
yeah. We're going to follow up with another one. So we'll be going to the winery and distillery today and see what we get there. So it should be exciting.
I hope there's not a lot of people so you can pull out the equipment.
I know.
All right. Well, let's do our spiel.
Okay, we're going to insert our spiel here.
You can find the Sandy and Toddcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube and Twitter. Be sure to like the Sandy and Toddcast on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. You can also join our group, Stay Weirdos, friends of the Sandy and Toddcast, for more fun. Stay Weirdos is a safe place to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. Sandy and Todd also have a podcast called the EMPATHECARY podcast. It's for empaths by empaths. And if you know an empath, you might want to listen too. Find and like the page on Facebook. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Sandy and Todd can also help with that too. Mind Garden Media is their latest project where the dynamic duo can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mind Garden Media, Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for staying weird.
And that is the spiel. Thank you, Dan Woodward, for that. Until the next podcast, which should be another follow-up to the trip for the Return to Haunted State 2022 tour. Bye.
Bye.